Housing and Zoning Committee of Community Board 5. We are going to wait a couple of minutes to make sure that we have more committee members joining this meeting, and then we'll get started. Thank you for your patience.
Layla, do we need to record this one since it's not an official meeting, or should we record it?
We're going to record attendance, and we're hoping to have as many members as possible.
Okay.
I think we also are recording the video, but we can check with Marisa to make sure.
Yes, the meeting should be recorded, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Is this considered an official meeting, even though it's virtual?
Yes, it's an official meeting. We're not going to take any action, and I will explain why.
Thanks.
Yes, we should be recording the meeting. My apologies, I was on the phone.
Thank you, Marisa. Okay, so I think we're going to be ready to begin this meeting. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. As I said, this is the Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee of Community Board 5. A few mentions I need to make tonight because we are running this meeting in a way that is going to be different from our normal circumstances. Let me start by saying that we are reviewing one application tonight. This is an application for Grace Plaza Cafe. It is a certification and the application is by 1114 6th Avenue Owners LLC, and it is to allow 3 open-air cafes as permitted obstructions in an existing plaza at 42nd Street and 6th Avenue, and this is the Grace building. This application was referred to the community board, to Community Board 5, on Monday, which was I believe the 25th, Monday of this week. Let me actually just check. I want to make sure that what I'm saying is accurate. I'm sorry. So it was Monday, June 28th. This is when this application was referred by the Department of City Planning to Manhattan Community Board 5. As a result of the timing, we made the determination that we would hear this matter tonight because this is our last meeting before our summer hiatus. So in order to be within the time allotted to review this application within the 45 days, we had no choice but to schedule this application for review tonight. As a result, we are not in compliance with public notification for this particular action. On top of this, as you are aware, the governor of the state of New York decided that the executive order would be terminated. He made this determination on June 25th, and as a result, the online virtual meetings no longer comply with the open meetings laws. We are meeting remotely, as we're all acknowledging, but this is in non-compliance with the open meetings law. So what is going to happen tonight is we are acknowledging that this meeting is not, because of these lapses in that in non-compliance with the open meeting laws, we are not able to take actions. What is going to happen tonight is that we're going to hear the application for these open air cafes. And we are going to produce a report that will be submitted to the Executive Committee of Community Board 5. The Executive Committee of Community Board 5 meets on Tuesday, July 6th, okay? Tuesday, July 6th at 6 p.m. This will be an in-person meeting. During this in-person meeting, we will be in compliance because it will be in person, and we will have done proper notification, which basically is 72 hours prior to the meeting. The Executive Committee of CB5 will take the action. So I hope this is clear for everybody. If need be, you can, of course, reach out to the board office, send an email, or communicate by any method that you wish. You will also have the opportunity to ask questions during this meeting, which hopefully will clarify any points that needs to be clarified. So with all of that being said, let me tell you a few words about how the meeting practically is going to run tonight. Pretty much it's going to be our ways of doing business. That is not going to change, meaning that we are going to receive a presentation by the applicant, full, uninterrupted, complete presentation. Members of the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions. Then I will open up the floor to members of the public. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions, make comments, and the applicant will be given a chance to address these questions and comments. Then we will move to business session. We will discuss the matter. We will make comments on this application. The part that changes is that we will not take a vote. Instead, we will gather the facts and we will prepare a report, and this report will be presented to the Executive Committee of CB5. Once again, exact meeting is on July the 6th at 6 p.m. And this information will be on our website, cb5.org. All right, so I hope all of this is clear. I am going to turn it now to the applicants for this application that is in front of us. I think we have the team of applicants with us tonight. I just want to make sure. Yes. And so if you want to introduce yourselves, you will have the ability to share your screen and show us any visuals that will help with your presentation. And then members of the committee will have a chance to ask questions. So applicants, it's all yours.
Hi, Barack Robel here. Thank you very much for that introduction. And thank you everyone for convening on such short notice. And the unfortunate fact that you got notice of this one day before your last opportunity to meet. I know it's an inconvenience, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to hear us and to listen to what we're doing at Grace Plaza. So I don't think it's a very complicated presentation. I want to jump right into it, so we could discuss the matter at hand. I will just, I'm going to share my screen very quickly. And I think that here we are. Are you seeing the area map on your side?
No, we're not seeing your screen.
Okay, hold on one moment.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Yes. Fantastic.
This way. You know what the site we're talking about. It's Grace Plaza. It's an iconic building. It's a travertine concave building. right there on the corner of West 43rd and 6th Avenue, or Avenue of Americas. It was built in the 1970s with a floor area bonus that was derived from the presence of the plaza and the arcades that surround the building. It's undergone a number of changes since the 70s. I think most recently and most relevant, which is, kind of the baseline that we're talking about right now, is in 2019, there was an approval by the chairperson of the City Planning Commission to redesign the entire Grace Plaza kind of configuration. It had previously been redesigned in 2009 and had considerable Brookfield office properties. And let me introduce you to Michael Kim, who is the applicant representative here with us. Brookfield office properties does control 1114 Avenue of Americas. That is the applicant. So it's effectively a Brookfield application. Brookfield's office properties also controls 1100 Avenue of Americas, the so-called former HBO building, which has been undergoing a rehabilitation to its facade and interior.
Can I actually ask you to enter full screen so that we have a larger view of the slides?
I'm showing a PDF here, and I'm wondering, and I've expanded it to full screen on my side. Did it get any larger for you?
Yes, that's already better. It's not in full screen, but it's already better.
Let me try and get rid of the thumbnails too, and maybe.
I think if you press the view thing on the upper left, you may have the option to go full screen.
Yeah. Here we go. Thank you. That might help. Okay.
Awesome, thanks.
I'm usually the one talking, and the architect is usually the one sharing the screen, but we don't have them here today. So thank you. I mean, this is an overview of the location, the site. I mean, I was going through the background. You may be aware in 2009, had undergone kind of an extensive design change by Brookfield Office Properties. And since that time, about a decade later, it's now undergoing in 2019, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, the chair approved this redesign of the space. It's under construction right now. I'm going to exit full screen for a second, just, to show you some pictures, I suppose, but I'm not sure it's necessary. But it's under construction right now with the new design. The new design is rendered right here in the full screen. And if we go down for a moment, this is a zoning lot site plan, or an aerial view, detailed view of what the new design of the space entails. What we're talking about in particular is not the design of the space, which has been approved, but the open air cafes, which are being proposed to be located within it. And those open air cafe locations are basically right in front of the Grace building, very similar to where the prior open air cafe had been previously located, serving the retail restaurant STK in that location, but just reconfigured a little bit and reduced in size to accommodate kind of a greater amount of space given over to the public realm than previously had been when the open air cafe had been in operation. In the prior design, this entire area, both of these rectangles was kind of basically the open air cafe. And now only this area is dedicated just in front of and adjacent to the building frontage for open air cafe. And this area just kind of remains always open to the public on and off season. So there's been a slight reduction in the seating that is currently provided for that use in connection with this redesign. A little bit of it has been recaptured on West 43rd Street along the sidewalk edge. And there's an operational door here from the same restaurant. So it just kind of serves an opportunity to provide a little bit more seating that was lost in the major portion of the plaza. So that's really 1 and 2, so to speak. It's one cafe, it'll operate as one cafe, but it's labeled as 1 and 2 for technical purposes, for city planning purposes, just to demarcate the different zones. With respect to Cafe 3, or really the second area, there is a proposed new cafe location in front of 1100 Avenue of Americas, right here, kind of interior into the plaza. because Brookfield has now kind of repositioned 1100 and now controls both buildings, there's kind of a new integrated approach to the way the ground floors, lobbies all interact with Grace Plaza. Grace Plaza used to be kind of a travertine wall up against 1100. There was no interaction. It was very much of a dead zone. And going back to the rendering above, 1100 is experiencing a complete overhaul of its facade that's creating complete transparency as opposed to that solid wall that used to be at this location, and allowing for, and I think maybe, Michael can speak to it a little bit in terms of the, design rationale, but allowing for more pedestrian access and connectivity from West 42nd Street, from Bryant Park into the space, as opposed to, just coming in from the northwest corner of the site. Other than that, there isn't a lot going on here besides the open air cafes. This is the location of the third or new open air cafe, that we're discussing. This is the location of what will continue to be servicing STK, which is the current tenant down there. I'm sorry we don't have a rendering, but it was off to the side here. We had that location of eight tables and 16 more kind of chairs at these two tops. That would have been over on West 43rd, outboard of that arcade area. But that would operate basically as one from the internal kind of circulation. And other than that, I think, if you have any questions specifically for Michael or myself, we'd be happy to address. It's going to follow just all the standard protocols that an open air cafe follows. There'll be a notice of certification that's recorded against the property. They'll, identify and notify that there is this open air cafe approval only for a 3-year term, and that after the 3 years it expires, and that there's an on-season plan, and in the off season, basically in the on season, all of the chairs that would otherwise have been available to the public in that location during the off season will then be relocated during the on season. So there's always a consistent amount of movable chairs and tables for the public available at all times. It just kind of gets reconfigured depending on whether the open air cafe is open or closed. Besides that, I think that's basically the broad strokes. And if there's any other questions, we'd be happy to address them about the space.
Great, thank you very much. So yeah, let's do that. Let's go to questions from members of the committee. You can use the raise hand function, and Clayton, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. I have a number of questions. The first one is, if I understand the materials correctly, you are actually applying for a net gain of seating, but from what I just heard from you, it sounded like you were reducing seating. So could you please be specific? What is the net gain of seating we're talking about?
Michael, do you have those numbers off the top of your head? Because I do here, but there is a...
I don't. Sorry.
I'll get them. I know that you sometimes have memorized them. I just want to close off this screen sharing for a moment, or just reduce the size of the... But hold on once. There is a loss to STK. The STK space was much larger, and I think they had 124 seats total. They're going down to 88 total, 72 in front. Yes.
I'm sorry. How many did they have, like in 2017, which is the last time you guys came to us?
120 something seats solely for them in front of the main portion of the plaza, right in front of the facade of the entrance. There was 120 something seats. I'll get the exact number. I think it was 123. What they're reducing to is 88 for STK. It will be 72 now in front instead of like 120. So there's actually 50 seat loss in the major portion of the plaza at that location. STK will get another 16 seats on West 43rd. So they in total go down from about 123 to 88. And you're correct. There is a proposal for something like, let me see what it is, in front of the 1100 Avenue Americas will be a new number of seats that will bring the total over 120 in total for the whole Grace Plaza. That is correct.
So the net gain is, the net addition of seats is 120.
No,
approximately?
the net addition of seats may be like 10 to 15 in total. And because STK went down from 124 to 88.
But they got 16 back. So it sounds to me like STK lost 36 and you were adding seats at 1,100. So we need numbers.
Yeah, they're in there. You have the materials. Let me get them out as well.
We've had the materials for 24 hours. The onus is on you to present an accurate depiction of what is before us.
Yeah, I'm happy to do
Okay,
that.
so
Give me a moment to
let
get
me
the numbers
tell
for
you
There's no discrepancy here. Yeah.
let me tell you what the numbers are. You lost, STK lost 35 seats.
Yeah, that
Okay, you went from 123 to 88.
That's
So
exactly what I said,
35
yeah.
seats,
Thank
and you're gaining 120, which is a net gain of 85 seats.
Thank you.
Do you agree with that?
I need to see where the net gain of 120 is, because I don't remember 120 being proposed for that space in front of 1,100 solely. That sounds like an excessive amount for that space right now.
Barack, I would go to that drawing.
That's definitely not correct. It's
that
like
doesn't
30.
I would just like to offer that I don't want to waste my own time or the rest of the committee by talking about a proposal that we have no actual facts or details. So before we can even get into the, excuse me, before we can even get into the details about conceptually what we believe is appropriate for a public space, it is not our problem that this was submitted to us 24 hours ago. That is not our problem. We are doing what we have to do. And unless the applicant wants to come up with some details right now, I don't want to waste 2 hours going over this when we don't have enough information. We have not been able to do a site visit. We don't have the opportunity to do the deliberations that are necessary for this committee.
The site is under construction right now. The view that's up in front of you is the proposed amount of seating for 1,100. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tables, 48 new seats, 88 plus 48. That is the total number of seats we're getting here. So as I said, it's about 10, 15, maybe 20 new seats, not 120. I don't think I'm just keeping anything from you, and we're working together, working through this as we speak. So there's no discrepancy. We're not hiding the wool on anything. There's definitely not 120 new seats. It might be a total net gain of 88 plus 48 is 96, 136 minus 123, 13 seats. As I said originally, about 15. We're getting a total net gain of 13 seats and a considerable amount of public space given over.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm totally lost. STK, I'm just quoting your numbers, and I agree with Clayton. You know, we shouldn't be wasting our time. You should have these facts, you know, ready to present to us. You know, we are talking about a sidewalk, open air cafe. That's all this application is about. Basically, open air cafes. We discuss numbers of table and numbers of seats.
I think very specific.
Okay, so let's do that again. Let's do that again.
72.
2017, STK had 123 seats. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes, that's correct.
In 2021, STK will have 88 seats broken down into 72 in front and 16 on 43rd. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and you are getting a new open air cafe with 120 seats.
48 seats. A new open air cafe with 48 new seats. I don't know where this new 120 is coming from. That's confusing me.
That's what you said.
I did not say that. That's what
it's recorded. We'll have a chance to review that. In any case, thank you for correcting the record. The new restaurant will have 48 seats.
Yes.
Okay, Clayton, I don't know if you have any additional questions for the applicant.
I mean, I have questions about why it is that we're constantly looking at renewals for this and it constantly expires and there's constant changes. I feel like this plaza has come before us more than any other plaza in our district. I'm a little concerned about an additional retail operation, like why it is that that makes sense for this public space. And I also want to hear about how many of these seats are 100% movable. As you know, in POPs, you are required to allow members of the public to sit in these seats without making a purchase. So I would like to know, when we have approved changes in the past, it has been important to this board that seating be able to be completely movable. So I want to hear how many of the proposed additional seats are going to be movable and what the signage plan is so that members of the public are aware that do not need to make a purchase in order to sit in one of these seats. In addition, in 2009, when we approved that renewal, and some of us were on the board at that time and remember this well, there was additional greenery and additional water features and things that were a part of that package that went a long way toward convincing us that in general, this was for the public benefit, in addition to granting that there be privatized use, which in general is something that we frown upon in these spaces. So I'd like to hear all those issues addressed.
Yeah, in 2009, there was a design change of the space, which reset the underlying configuration of all the planters and seating from what had previously been approved in like 1970 something, right? At that time, there was also an open air cafe approval. It is required technically that every 3 years, that approval be renewed. It automatically expires by law, and the zoning resolution requires us to come back before you every 3 years to get a renewal. And there has been no change to the open air cafe since 2009. It's been consistently renewed in the same configuration since its approval in 2009. Now in 2019, Brookfield has removed the water features and completely redesigned the underlying planters, trees, and circulation pursuant to a design change approval through the City Planning Commission and chair that's under construction right now. So that baseline prior design doesn't exist anymore. On the record, there's a new legal instrument that requires it be in conformance with the new design that the chair specified. And there's that water feature and some of the travertine kind of, I think, features that you're talking about have now been removed in order to allow for the integration with 1100. All the tables and chairs are movable, and at any time that they open air, there are, during the off season. This is an off-season plan, and excuse me, this is the on-season plan. So look at the off-season plan because they go fast here. This is the off-season plan. So in the off-season, so the winter months, there's no cafe. There are movable chairs and tables in these locations that the public uses, moves around, reads a book, right, whatever. Once they get the sun, changes orientation. When the cafe comes into operation during the warmer months, what happens is all those seats that were in those locations get redeployed to other spots in the open air, in the plaza. There's always a consistent amount of movable chairs and tables available to the general public. New seats, new movable chairs, the 188 and the 48 that we just spoke about are not there during the off season. They get brought in, right? They get brought into the open air cafe zones, and then they get deployed only when the cafes are operational. And those areas get reserved during the on season for patrons of the cafes. And there never is a reduction in movable tables and chairs to available to the general public under under the plaza approval. It's my belief that the open air cafe approval is specifically to allow up to 20% of the plaza to be made available only to patrons who pay. And that if you do not have to, by any means, buy anything to enter the plaza or to use a movable chair and table that has been taken out of an open air cafe and redeployed, but open air cafe tables and chairs during the on season are reserved for patrons. And that's pretty customary. And we're coming nowhere near the 20% limitation that's baked into the certification that allows these spaces as of right, and that are contemplated for these spaces, not to privatize them, but to actually draw people in and to make sure that they are successful. Because prior to 2009 and Brookfield taking on this space to really revitalize it, it was subject to some, design flaws that came out of the 70s, unanticipated consequences of not having a little bit of retail and there being some kind of lack of vibrancy or invitation to the general public. So I think in 2007, when city planning went through the whole overhaul of the pop spaces, they kind of see it as a positive, right? And I don't know if everyone does, but that there be some limited amount of, open air cafe usage that brings people in and brings some kind of mixed kind of usage, as long as there is a generous amount of space dedicated to the public to use it as they see fit, and there's over 85% that remains available to the general public to sit, read a book, and not have to buy anything at any time. So I think that seems to be the balance that's achieved through the proposal. But the retail nature, I think if there's questions about 1100, maybe Michael wants to jump in about just what the overall concept about adding retail, integrating the retail at 1100. I think it's been a very successful way of trying to revitalize a dead space. But I'm not a designer, and I think maybe if Michael wants to jump in on that.
I mean, I can add a bit of color. Again, for Brookfield, placemaking is pretty paramount. So whether it's this project, Manhattan West, or elsewhere, the public space is pretty crucial to the marketability and sort of the viability of the spaces in general, public and private. So again, 1100 initially was the HBO headquarters. The lobby actually went east-west along the north face and had a travertine wall facing the plaza. And so it's a pretty tough urban, I guess, condition. And in many ways, when Brookfield had the right or acquired the rights to 1100 and combine it in many ways with the plaza and Grace building, 1114, again, we saw a huge opportunity to create a great space and a great building. So 1100 now has a lobby that orients north-south, in fact, it's a public lobby that connects Bryant Park and 42nd Street to the plaza. And again, with retail sort of at the four corners, and again, we are in the process of negotiating or at least trying to find potential tenants for these spaces. Again, it goes around the building at the four corners. So, we had always designated the northeast corner for a restaurant, some sort of food beverage service. And again, working off of what happened with STK had, let's say roughly the 123 seats. We basically prorated that down to give that area and seating over to the new restaurant in the northeast corner. Again, to be determined who that may actually be. But I think in terms of the plaza itself, I think it benefits highly from more visual activity and transparency with retail tenants along that north edge. And again, it's something that we worked hand in hand with DCP and city planning to again, just review and address any sort of concerns that they had. As Barak had stated, the overall area is around 24,000 square feet for the entire plaza. And the open air cafe that we're requesting here is only a fraction of that.
Maybe another way to look at these numbers is to better understand actually how many seats are available in the plaza that are actually not part of any open air cafe.
So Barak, I don't know if those are on these sheets, but I'm pretty sure they're in the table somewhere. I apologize, I'm not in the city at this point to have these drawings in front of me.
When I had the underlying Grace Plaza design PDF open, it was crashing, but it has all those calculations. This is the open air cafe application.
Maybe it's in the application that you submitted with DCP.
But
maybe it's in the project description.
You can see, just give you a visual, this is the underlying amount of tables and chairs that are in the space when there's no cafes.
No, we're not talking about when there's no cafes. We're talking about when there is a cafe. When the cafes are in operation, how many tables and chairs?
I understand. These are the same exact amount. These same exact amount of tables and chairs do not get reduced when the cafe is in operation. I think the visual helps because as you can see, they're spread out here in the off-season plan. When you look at the on-season plan, all of the tables and chairs you'll see more consolidated tables and chairs in here that because they're moved from here over to here and over to here, and they're moved from here kind of into the space. There's never a reduction. There's only an introduction of new.
This is not my question.
These tables and chairs here are the same amount that will remain when the cafes are in operation. And
But they are for private, when the cafes are in operation, they are for private use.
No, they're not, because they get moved out of the cafe area.
So where do the patrons sit then? I'm confused.
Let me walk through the presentation. I haven't really
areas.
gone through it. I think that I started to get drilled about numbers before actually going through the tables so we could actually get here. But this is the off-season plan. All of these tables and chairs that are in a cafe zone get moved out of the zone. They get moved into the larger Grace Plaza.
And then the 136 chairs get added in the off season. So there's a net 136 added in the on season scenario, in addition to the public chairs and tables and benches throughout the plaza.
So these are all new. On the on season plan, these are all newly added. I mean, effectively, they're moved out of the cafe area, and, and into the plaza, and new ones are moved in. Whether it's, intersposing some, but there's always a certain amount that are in the cafe. It's always a net gain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I just wish you could tell us what this number is. Moving on, can you actually tell us what is the size of the existing pavilion? In square feet?
It hasn't changed in square feet. It's not really the subject of this application. I don't know the zoning square footage of it. We can get back to you on that if you want. It's actually not part of the open. It's not part of Grace Plaza. It's an excluded portion that is not subject to restrictions of Grace Plaza.
So it's not part of the 23,000 square feet of the Grace Plaza?
No, on the technical drawings, it actually has a dash boundary around it that excludes it from the boundary of Grace Plaza. It's a area within that's excluded from the jurisdiction.
And it was not bonusable?
It was not bonusable?
No.
The floor area in there was part of the original zoning floor area of the building that.
Okay, so this generated a bonus.
No, the plaza generated the bonus.
And this is part of the plaza. So my question is.
This is part of the building. I didn't make this determination. This has been made like in 2001, DCP carved this area out of the plaza. It hasn't been part of the plaza for 20 years. It's part of the building. It's not part of the plaza. It's considered, it's connected underground to the building. It pops up. They don't consider it part of the plaza. They don't subject it to the plaza regulations. Only in so much as it faces a plaza, it would be restricted in the signage that any retail space facing a plaza is restricted from, but it's not part of the plaza itself. It is excluded from the square footage of the plaza.
Okay.
I would say that to answer your question, though, it is, per this drawing, roughly 2,200 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Not counted to the area of the plaza, as Baraka said.
On the perimeter, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue with questions. Do we have more questions from members of the committee? Any more questions? You can use the raise hand function. Okay, I don't see any hands going up. All right, moving on. I think we have one member among our attendees, so I will open up the floor to him or her. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Okay, so seeing none, we can move to business session. During business session, only members of the committee are allowed to discuss the matter. And let's discuss this as we need to come to some sort of understanding or consensus on this application. So we need comments. Are there any comments? Actually, one of my colleagues is just asking for clarification whether your presentation is complete, or was there any other material that you wanted to present to the committee?
No, we're usually not asked to present these to community boards in general because of the ministerial nature of the open air cafe. But if there's anything you specifically want to know about it, there are 148 seats, by the way, that are there at all times, open to the public during the on and off season.
For the record, you've been in front of this committee every single time you've had to renew this.
I understand that, but there's nothing more that we would show besides the drawings that DCP would approve for the open air cafe space.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. So let's move to our business session. Comments from members of the committee. I think EJ, you had your hand up.
More of a kind of procedural question to you, Layla. I mean, my understanding from reviewing the project description and kind of past applications that come before us is that basically the chair will have to certify that the proposed open air cafe complies with 3773. Do I have that right? And do you know what the main principles behind that certification are?
Yeah, so basically the chair of the City Planning Commission, who's also the director of the Department of City Planning, has to basically certify that it complies with the requirements. So there is not much discretion on the part of the chair. You basically need to make sure that the footprint, the number of seats, the hours of operation, all of that is in compliance. So there's a strict formula that the Department of City Planning imposes on these open air cafes. The reason why the community boards weigh in on these applications, and we review a number of them, is that it gives us the opportunity to actually provide comments and actually ask that the method of operation be in compliance and mindful of what our district needs are. So for example, we very often, almost always, require that the seating, although used for private purposes by a hospitality entity, restaurant, cafe, or coffee shop, or such, that the seating should still be available to members of the public, and that they should not be asked to consume anything to use the space. That basically the operator has the right to conduct business on this seating, but that the public still gets to enjoy this public seating because of the bonus density that was afforded to the building in exchange for the open space. So this is, for us, something that is very critical because our district is so dense, and open public space is at such a premium that we feel it's a good compromise. We understand the need for some private operation, but that in essence those pubs, as the name says it all, they're privately owned, but they're public spaces and they should remain public. So, this is basically why this is referred to the community board. And then this is the level of discretion that the CPC can have by basically saying, yes, you are in compliance, and this is why, it is a chair certification, but these are, the terms of the operation that we want. the seasonality, the hours of operation, and, for example, the fact that, the seating should be available to the public regardless of whether they make a purchase. Does that address your question, EJ?
Yeah, that's really helpful context. Thanks.
Okay.
I mean,
Great.
comment wise, I'll defer to other members of the committee who have some more perhaps experience with a number of these, but it sounds like we would want to assess as a committee. It sounds like there will be a marginal addition of new seats. It sounds like we would probably want to layer on our usual caveats, which are, even if as of right there is a ability for the owner to restrict, it sounded like 15 or 20% to just customers, we may want to add in a stipulation that all seating should be available to anyone, regardless of whether or not they have bought something.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that Clayton has his hand up. Clayton, go ahead.
So I've just been conferring with Land Use Council regarding 3773B, which is the relevant part of the zoning law here. And just so the committee is aware, the definitive interpretation of the law is that the 20% number we heard is about the square footage allowed for cafe usage, not the number of seats, number one. And number two, even though the text seems to be a little unclear, I'm still looking into this, no amount of seats are allowed to be totally private. And in my 12 years on the board, never have I heard that as part of a proposal. So it would absolutely, no matter how we feel about the number of seats and losing the water feature and the changes that are being proposed, it is a non-starter that any chair in this plaza would be off limits to a member of the public, period.
Layla, you're muted.
So thank you, Clayton. And Mike, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I agree with Clayton and EJ, and that the plaza square footage is what was created the bonus and not the number of seats. So all of the seats in the square footage should be open to the public.
Thank you. Any other comments from members of the committee? Okay, so seeing none. So if I hear correctly, basically, we don't object to the net gain of 13 seats into the plaza, but the entire available seating that is part of these open air cafes must remain open to the public. Does that summarize the general view that has been expressed so far? You can open your mic, you can nod your head, get your thumbs up. Okay, all right.
Ask a question. Sorry, go
yes,
ahead.
Matt.
Sorry, just to understand the difference between this and the last resolution, there was a line in the last resolution that referred to public seating when the restaurant is not in use. So was that just was it incorrect in the prior resolution based on Clayton's reading, Clayton's understanding of the reason of how those seats work, and everything should be public?
Yes, I think that in 2017, I don't want to speak out of turns, but the land use committee leadership may have not, may have been in transition, so they may have been a little bit of a misunderstanding of what the text really says. And I think this language was referring to what the applicant was presenting, which is that when the cafe, which is seasonal, is not in operation, then all of this seating becomes available, and there's nothing else going on because the restaurants are not using the seating. But then when the cafes, when the season starts, basically the applicant wants the seating to be off limits. But the
knows they're also still sharing their screen. Just maybe want to unshare your screen, or you can keep it, but just say no.
Yeah, thank you. the zoning resolution basically says, and it's basically the underlying concept of these POPs is that you basically give up some of your ground level space, and in exchange, I mean, you still keep your FAR. It's not like you're giving up any FAR. You keep your FAR. You mass your building differently. You give up some part of the ground area. You make it available to the public, and in exchange, you get a bonus, which is a great way to go about reclaiming public space at the street level, keeping the density that is as of right, and incentivizing a developer. So it's a sort of like win-win-win. It is just that at some point, it was realized that maybe a small portion of this open space could be used by a private operator. I think that the rationale that we're hearing today, that is something that is very concerning to our district, is that we have a large number of these POPs, and very often we're told that these POPs are failing. They're not attracting people, they're dead, they're empty, they're misused, and that the only way to make them user-friendly is to privatize them. But actually, as part of this deal, as part of the framework of this quid pro quo, was to actually make it successful. It was not just, oh, here is a space and let's abandon it, and let's people, can figure out how they want to use it or not. But it was incumbent on the owner of these POPs to actually make them successful as a public space, not as let me kick it to a restaurant operator and then they can use it to serve their patrons. So, I think that this is, the sort of tension that we wrestle with these applications, that, technically what we would love, and we have some of those, that, they should be entirely public, there should be no private operation, and they should be successful. And they should be, well programmed, with some maybe non-for-profits that can, come and provide some services or some activation, some water features, some tables and chairs, maybe adjacent to a coffee shop that people can grab some beverage and then come and sit, lunch break, that kind of thing. So I think that this is what we are wrestling with tonight with this application, which is that we're told that the space is failing, and that the only way to activate it is to actually kick it to a private operator. So I think that we can accomplish all of it in the end. I think having a restaurant using some of it is probably sensible, and we're not objecting to the increase in the number of tables. But the members of the public should be able to share the use of this open space and this seating space with this private entity. And, it happens in other POPs in our district, and it is successful. So, we're very comfortable by saying that, it's not a unreasonable constraint on the operator or the owner of the POPs. Yeah, I think Clayton, you wanted to add something. I just see that you put something in the chat.
I just dropped a link in the chat. This is just the most recent, maybe even not the most recent, but an example of a resolution, and we have done this dozens of times regarding private use in POPs, requiring that seats be available to the public without purchase. Not only that, but that signage be implemented so that people understand that as well. And to Matt's point, you're totally right, Matt. I don't think the 2019 one, but 2009, the language in that resolution doesn't specify that point, but it does say something about the seats, all these seats will be available 100% to the public off season. And that's like icing. That resolution failed to include the specific language that the seats technically must be available to members of the public without purchase. And that is zoning law.
Thank you for the update on that stuff.
Mike, I see that you have your hand up. Go ahead if you have any further comments.
Sorry, no, that was from last time. I didn't put it down.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so as I said, we're not going to take a vote tonight, but I think that we have a clear consensus on the position of this committee. Let me ask the question slightly differently. Does anyone on the committee object to the comments that were made? I see some heads nodding. Okay, so it looks like everybody is in agreement with the comments that were made. I just want to mention for the record that as Clayton alluded to, we basically have a standard agreement that we have made with a number of POPs owners as to exactly this point. So usually the language goes along the lines of the applicant, in order for the applicant to receive an approval, the applicant commits to agreeing to our conditions and our stipulations. And they basically are that, you know, the space remains public, remains open to the public, and no need for purchase. And that signage is provided to actually notify the public that they can use the seating and that purchase is not required. So depending on the site, the signage varies a little bit, you know, in its design, but it is typically a sandwich board near the entrance of the cafe and little cards on the tables. Some applicants have agreed to do, I think, umbrellas, but not all cafes have umbrellas. So I think that was a one-off. So basically, you know, it's like some sort of a robust enough signage that, you know, the public, whether they are heavy users of the plaza or first-time comers visiting from out of state or out of the country, would actually know and understand that this area is actually open to the public, and that you know, a waiter is not going to come and say, you know, what is your order, or, you know, get out and leave. So this is, you know, the type of agreement that is needed in order to secure an approval and a support by the community board for these kinds of applications. So this is something that, you know, obviously we're not going to be able to make a determination for the reasons that I stated at the beginning of this meeting, but this is something that we will include in our report to the executive committee, and the executive committee will make this determination. I hope all of that is clear. Members of the committee, do you have any questions about the process? Okay, so I see some heads nodding. Everybody seems to be in agreement and understands the process. Okay, excellent. All right, so I just want to mention again for members of the applicant's team that the executive committee of CB5 will make the determination. The executive committee meets on July 6th at 6 p.m. Location will be determined at, I think, a later time, but not much later. Maybe it has already been determined, and it will be on the website, cb5.org. Members of the applicant will have an opportunity to speak during the public session of the executive committee meeting. And then the position of the executive committee will then be referred to the full board for their review and vote. So the full board of Community Board 5 meets on Thursday, July the 8th at 6 p.m. Location also to be determined, and it will be notified and announced on our website. The vote of the full board becomes the official position of the full board and becomes the official position, the recommendation that is forwarded to the city agency, in that case, the City Planning Commission. All right, so I want to make sure that the applicant is aware Executive committee will take a vote on this matter July 6th. The full board will take a vote on the executive committee's resolution on July 8th. If you have any questions, you can reach out to the board office, cb5.org, email office@cb5.org. And on that note, I think that we have conducted all the business that we could to the extent that we could, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.